Now, a typical watchout presentation doesn't have just one display, but multiple displays. Otherwise, why use watchout in the first place? So let's go ahead and add a couple of more displays to the stage window. I'll add the first one in the same, the next one in the same way as the first one, just putting it right on top of it here, and you can see that we have now two displays, one display 1 and one display 2. So the question is, where do we put it? Well, you can actually put it anywhere you want. If you want to put it here, that's totally fine. And in some cases, that's the arrangement of displays that you may want to have. For example, if this was a creative arrangement of LCD displays on a wall, maybe you don't want to have them in a row. Maybe you want to have them in some other more interesting shape or form on the wall. So that would be perfectly okay. If you leave the display there, then you would put those two physical displays on the wall in an arrangement similar to this one. So the image area of display 2 is down here, and the image area of display 1 is up here. And the fact that you can have them apart like this is often very advantageous, because with LCD displays and plasma displays, you have the edge or the mullions of the display extending a bit outside the image area, so you actually want to account for the distance between the displays. So maybe if you want to have two LCD displays side by side, you would do something like that. Of course, you would do it in a more scientific way, measure the size of the display, knowing the resolution of the display, then measuring the width of the frame. Then you can calculate the amount of pixels that would correspond to the width of the frames of the two displays. So you would physically put it at that location, and you can put it at an exact pixel location like we did with the first display, which we put at left 200 and top 200, and we know that the width is 1024. Now let's just say, for the sake of argument, that you calculate that the frame of the display equals 100 pixels. Then you have two displays, so you have two frames to account for. That makes 200 pixels. And the left of this one is at 200, so we have left 200, and we have the width, and then we have the frame itself. So the next display should then go at 1424 pixels from the left edge of the stage window. So to put it at that exact location, you would open up this display and numerically position it at 1424 from the left edge of the stage, and we would also put the top at 200 pixels, which is where we had display number 1. So that would then be an appropriate setup for example, an LCD display that accounts for the frame. Now, another perhaps even more common use is that you don't want the displays to be set apart like this, but you want to use projectors. So you want the displays to overlap instead of having being set apart. And by dragging the displays on top of one another like this, then you create the overlap area, which is where watchout provides the edge blend between the projected images. So if you want to say you want to again do it in a numerical way, and you want to have a 200 pixel overlap, which is roughly 20% of the display, which is kind of a normal or edge blend overlap, then you would open up this display and you would put it at 1024, which is a exactly 200 pixel overlap of between display 1 and display 2. Let's say we want to add a third display here, and we want to have that again with a 200 pixels overlap. Then another way we can do that, since we have most of the things set up the way we want them here, is that we can duplicate this display by copying it and pasting it back in. And nothing happens because the new display looks exactly like the previous one, including its location. So it sits exactly on top of the old display 2. If we move it a little bit over to the right, we can see that we indeed have two displays number 2. Now if I press the shift key as I move it, then I can strain the movement so it moves only horizontally. And I know it should go at the width of this display minus 200 pixels. So that puts it at 1848, which is exactly where I got it. Well, that's kind of hard to do by just wiggling it, but I got lucky. But this is where it should go to give it, again, a 200 pixel overlap. Another thing we can do here is that we can change the name, so it's called display 3. Yet another thing that can help a little bit to keep things straight is to give these three displays different colors, or at least maybe just change the color of the center display. So let's open that up and click change and give that a green color instead, so that makes it a little bit easier to see where the displays are. One last thing that I'm somewhat glossing over here is that in order to actually run this show and actually use these displays, you need to make them talk to display computers running Watchout display software. And in order for them to talk to the display computers, you need to type in the address of the display computer that corresponds to this display. And that goes into this field. And the address is in the form of an IP number, which is the network address of the computer that has to be configured in that display computer. So let's say we want to use a typical local subnet address 192.168.0.11. So let's call this 11, 12, and 13 the last digit. Then you would type that right in here, and then you would set up the display computer with that corresponding address. And that's all you need to do here in order to make Watchout talk to that particular display.